All right, welcome back. We are MDEV1004, that's Mobile APIs and Frameworks, in the summer 2024 semester at Georgia. And it's week 10, part 4 of our broadcast and recording. And by now, I was hoping that my internet was back up, but it's not. So we're going to continue with Android. So where last we left off, I was checking to see if Android was working, and it is. Actually, I was able to log in. So the thing that I was able to do, just go back to here, I just want to make sure that this is not cycling. It's good. And what we can do is, if I was to run the app, just to show you, and I'm here, and if I put in, let's say admin, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and click login, then login should be successful, and we're able to get here, which is good. And to monitor this, just to prove that this is actually happening, we can go to render. And let's take a look here. And you can see that if I was to go to logs, then sure enough, right there, there's my login and there's the movie list. So you can see that that worked. Okay. Now, in terms of the editing and all that kind of stuff, let's see how that works right now. Okay, so I go back to this, and let's suppose I want to edit the matrix like I've done before, and let's call this matrix 2. Does that work? So if I was to go there, and if I click update, then matrix 2. So we're good to go. So remember that we already have, what we have right now is JWT security is active, and this is working. So in terms of what we have here, we're good to go. So I can put this back. And usually if I can do updates, then I can do everything else. Okay, so that's that proven out. So that works okay. Next, we need some stuff. We need a logout button, and we need to register the register screen to work. So let's do the register part first. So I'm going to go back to our register activity, which is this one. And then we're going to continue with the stuff that we did before. So let's do that. So one thing is that we want to set up the, so this is the onCreate function. And in the onCreate function, we want to make a binding for the cancel button. So here's my cancel button, set onClickListener, and we're going to do that to this. Okay. And really all we want to do is finish. So that's what that will do. So in the register activity, if I press cancel, then I'll be able to go back. Let's test that functionality. So you can get to the register activity right now, and this will just bring us back. So again, if I click the register activity here, click the cancel button, takes it back. All good. Okay, so far so good. Next piece. So now that we have that, I want to set up the binding.register button. So there it is. And I want to do a set on click listener, right? And what we want to do with this is val user. We want to create a new user. So the new user object is going to include the username, which is going to equal to binding dot username text dot text dot toString. There we go. And then we also want the email address, which is going to be binding dot email edit text dot toString. And you can see where this is going. I'm just going to copy paste the rest. So this is what the rest is from my notes. So that is the binding. So what we do is we get those first, and that we make an object. So the object user is created. Now we're going to do a register user function, and that sits outside of our onCreate method. So we're going to make a new private function, and we're going to call this register user. We're going to have the user object come in, right? And from here, what we want to do is let's call register user here. So after the user's been created, we want to call register user and pass the user object to that function, right? There we go. And actually, the register function isn't that bad. What we want to do is we want to do the, again, just to save time, and not because I don't want to do it by hand, but only because it's going to take too much time. And I want this to be done for you guys tonight at the very minimum. So again, what we've got is the data manager instance. We pass in a reference to the context, which is this. So this is the register activity. Callback, again, and I'm just going to put this at the top here, it's going all the way to the top. Retrofit needs to be in here. We don't need these pieces. These are kind of redundant, like we said before. But we do need retrofit. And I think what we can do is we can put it here. We can say import retrofit2.star. Okay, now this will take care of most of the problems that we have here. There is still one problem with toasts because we don't have toast. So we'll go here and go import toast. That will take care of the toast problem. And then for the most part, we should be able to be good with this. Let's go through it. Okay, so we get a response. On response, so first of all, we register the user through the data manager. Again, the register user has already been set up, right? So we use the API response user. That's the callback that we're using. Remember that the callback function is something that we're passing through, creating an object to do this. Override the response. So when we get a response, if the response is successful and the response body success is true, this is good. That means you use your register successfully, and then we finish. And then what we're going to do is, if it's a problem, the user registration failed. Now, in this case, different than in iOS, we have these little toasts that come up like we had before. And these little toasts basically say we're good or we're not good. Okay, so that's what's going to happen here. This is the registration thing. Let's add this into the GitHub repository, git add dot, git commit -m, and we'll say added register activity, and then logic, git push. Okay, so that's that part. Awesome. The next part that we want, so now that that is done, we should test. Let's try this out. So again, I'm going to refresh this one. There we go. Now we don't have a way of getting back yet. We need to modify the API, the user interface a little bit. So again, let's register this time. Okay, so we're going to register Peter Parker. So Peter Parker, the email address is spiderman@example.com. Username is Spiderman. And the password is 123456 and 123456. Oops. 123456. Again, things that are missing from the registration. There is no confirmation that this is working properly or anything like that. All the things that I said in iOS is also true. Like, do we really need confirm right now? No, but that's something that we would add and you would add for your assignment number 4. Let's click register. If everything goes well, everything gets registered and we go back to login. Let's try this out. We'll do Spiderman, and we'll do 123456, and we're going to click login. And then if everything goes well, then we can log in, and we're good. Take a look at that. We're good to go. Let's do some deletions. So I want to go here and remember that we've added swiping gesture. So if I swipe to the right, then I can delete, and I can swipe to the right, and I can delete. I can clean up some of these, things that we have here. Let's try this out. So we can delete quite a few of them, Space Adventure and Godzilla, all these demos that people added in. I can get rid of, and you can see that slowly, all this stuff that we had, all these, kind of negative, things that were put in are gone. And to test this, if I go here to the, access, and if I refresh, you see some of those are gone, right? So this is good. So now we know that full CRUD is happening. JW2 is initialized, so that means we know we're getting the proper token and everything else. It's all working, which is great. Again, I would have done this with iOS if my house machine was down, but it is what it is. Let's get back to the next piece. So now that that is good, going back to Android, we need a button here to log out. Okay, so we have everything, but we're missing that button to log out. So we need to add that in. And there's a couple ways we can do this, right, in the main, right? So what we're looking at is we can add it to the top, where basically next to favorite movies, we have a little button there that's log out, similar to what we did before. We do have this button down here, which is the add button. Like, this will allow me to add new movies and stuff like that. We've tested this last week, so we don't have to do that again this week. But for activity main, we do need some kind of button, as an example, to log out. Okay, that's what we're going to need. All right, so let's do that. And just to ensure that is going to happen, just going to make sure that I'm not. Oh, we need the log out. This makes sense. 1 second, please. As I'm checking. So really, what we want to do now, let's consider this. Remember what this does for JWT. Do you guys remember that you cannot expire a token, right? You can't do that. So the logout button, what will it do, right? You can't log back in if it takes us to the login screen. So what we need to do is we need to finish and go back to the login screen somehow, right? Now remember what we did. Let's take a look at the login screen. So login activity, right? When we log in, just to show you this for a second. So we log in, and the login user command gets executed, and then we're into this thing down here. So we have the user and everything else, and as soon as the user is done, we start the activity and we finish the login activity. Finish the login activity. So it's almost like we need to do this exact same thing. We need to start an activity with the intent. That's the from here to the. Now notice that this is done in one, where we don't have to describe an intent. We need to do something similar to this for the logout button. So first, let's add one in. So again, this is the only thing that's missing. So again, I'm going to go back to the activity main XML. And here you can see that we have this, and we also have this floating action button. We can have multiple floating action buttons. I can put another one up there, for example, which is kind of a neat thing to do. So that's not a bad thing to think about. So if I go to buttons and I go to floating action button, let's just say I put this up here, as an example. So here's, I'm putting it up here. And so it takes us to a bunch of symbols, right? These are all the symbols that you can see just off the top. IC close cancel is not a negative, trash. And you can see that there are basic things that you get out of the box, a revert, symbol or whatever. And there's also an upload and a bunch of symbols here that are drawable that you get out of the box, some kind of symbol that we can use. And I like symbols because it's really great. As an example, there's some downloads, and there's a hang up button, and then a bunch of other stuff here. So I'm just going to search for something that makes sense. So you can see that there's, the X seems to be the only one that we can use. We can also make our own drawable if you want to, like as an example. So right now we have this one. If I go plus and I want to make a drawable, an image asset or a vector asset, I can do that. And then I can choose clip art. That's also something I can do. So I can choose clip art and say something like, sign out, log. So there's log out, log in. There's the log out command. So I can use this one and press OK. Right? And this is what it would look like. So baseline logout 24, I click next. And then I can use that one and click finish. Right? So, and then if I was to do that, right? So we just added that in. Baseline logout. This is the one I can use. And if I press OK, then it could look like that. That's what I want to use. So this is the symbol. We need to add some constraints. Right now it says plus, right? Plus is not what we want. And we're going to go there and change this stuff in a second. So here's the layout. Here's the declared attributes. And we're going to change this. So instead of IC symbol add, we're going to choose, way at the top, this one. That's what we want to change it to. So that's like a logout button. We want to change the background color instead of this color to some other color. Let's see if we can do that. So then I'll fix this. So I want to change this to, if I say a tint, let's go with a background tint, and we'll change it to red, right? There we go. So red color. And I want to change the foreground. Can I change the foreground? I think this is layered. But let's see what happens to the layer foreground. I don't think that's going to work. So let's undo that. Yeah, well, it doesn't really matter. Maybe it's the text color. We got to change ripple text direction. Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's to change the text object is something else. But anyways, it looks pretty good. We know what it means. It's logouts, right? So this is where it's going to go. And what we can do is we can add some constraints. So from the top and then to the right, to the right. And so now we can look at this symbol, and let's go back out to attributes, transforms, common attributes, and I want to see what that symbol is. There's my floating action button, this one right there. So notice that the layout constraint is parent, right? So that's the bottom of parent and stuff like that. Now we do have a couple of errors, right? We do have a couple of errors, and this is, just says floating action button parent, and then we have baseline logout 24, right? So let's see what the issue is. It says suppress missing constraints attribute. No, we need a constraint. We definitely need a constraint. So we have a constraint top, and we need to add the constraint bottom. So app layout constraint to the right. So that's the end. Layout constraint end to end of parent is what we're going to put in there. So that'll take care of the layout constraint for us. It's going to go back out there for a second. And now that we have those two things, let's click away and click back. And why are we seeing those? Cleared attributes. Here's our layout. There we go. So what I want with this one is let's add some margin. So we'll say something like 20 and maybe 20 over here. And this part right here, we have kind of a margin, top margin of 20. Let's add something like 10. Gives a little bit of space there, which is good. So that's kind of what that is. That looks pretty good. So that is something. We need to change the name of this thing. We'll call this the logout button. So logout button. We'll refactor that one. There we go. That looks pretty good. And that is a pretty big button that's going to tell you log out. Okay. What else? We have some other problems. What are the problems that we have? Log out button, no speakable text. We can suppress that. I don't care about that. All right, so that is attributes. And if I'm just going to go back here and reduce that. So let's see what it says. It says, yeah, we have a clickable is true. We have this one, and there's a bunch of these things that are coming up. What is this saying? Just collapse empty tag. Sure, that's fine. That's all we have to do, and that's all I have to do. Recycler view. This is good. All right, and let's fix this problem. So it says no speakable text. Set this to Android. What does it also say? Project errors. No, there's no errors. So these are just layouts and qualifiers. I'm not going to care about this right now. You would fix this. You can suppress that error. Okay, so I don't care about that right now. What I do care is, let's go back to this. So that's what it looks like. We have a button called logout button. And let's see what we can do in terms of connecting to it. So back to main activity. And what I would probably do is inside the onCreate method, just like we have button, add button as an example, and set onClickListener, we want to add something else. So I'll just put it right here. I'll say something like binding dot, logout button dot set onClickListener. We want this one. And we'll say that just like we have an intent here, we will do the same thing where I want to go back to the previous kind of to the logout screen is what I want to do. Okay, so let's see if we can do that. So I'm going to say something like val intent is equal to a new intent object from this to the login activity, which is a class that is .java. That's what this is going to be. And that is the intent. We don't want to put any extras in this case, so we don't need anything else. We just want to start activity and then intent. And that's all we want to be able to do. And here we're also going to finish. So we want to we won't allow this to go back. We'll actually close off our activity here, our main activity, and see if that happens. Okay, let's see what we can do to fix that problem. There's a logout button. So notice I'm not logging out, actually. I'm not logging out. There are some things we can do, but first I want to see how this would look. So let's say, for example, I use admin, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then click login. Then it takes me to the main screen. Right, there it is. I got the logout button. If I click it, then we're back to this, right? And technically, we're logged out. There could be some things that we want to do as an example to mitigate this problem, right? So, I mean, it's not really a problem. It's just, you know, we have some stuff that we can do. So one thing is, when we're pressing the logout button, we could get rid of shared preferences. We could clean it up somehow, right? So that way it's, we could basically just look at how the shared preferences are done. So if we went to Data Manager, Data Manager basically says shared preferences, and what we did here is we said shared preferences equal to get shared preferences, my shared preferences. We just need to make a reference to this, not the context at all, right? So if I take this, and if I go back to my main activity, this one, right? And then if I make a shared preferences, let's see if I can get a reference to shared preferences up here. So I'll say I'll do a private var, and I'll say, you know, shared preferences is equal to, and I can kind of put that in there, get shared preferences, but really this is not what it is. I want to make it so that I can do this. That's weird, right? Instead, what I probably want to do is shared preferences, right? And then what it's going to say, of course, is I need to late init var, because I'm going to initialize it afterwards. So late init var shared preferences. So it's of type shared preferences. And then inside of my onCreate method, which is where I can do it, this is where I would initialize my shared preferences, just like we've done in the past. So here, maybe I'll do it at the top here in this case. So I'll say something like, and I can do this to the Data Manager as well if I wanted to, but I mean, we're right here. So I can say something like, okay, well, shared preferences is equal to, and I can kind of copy that in. We want to get a reference to this. So shared preferences is referring now to the same thing that we referred to before. Cool. All right, so now what's next? So now that we have our logout, one thing that I want to do is, before we navigate, I want to use shared preferences, and I want to basically set, and notice that I can get string set, or I can put, you know, those are the things that I can do. One of those kind of things that we did before, right? So if I get string or get all or whatever, now remember what we did was, this is just making a reference. We just got shared preferences. This is what this does. Okay, let's go back and take a look at Data Manager. So once we get the shared preferences, then we can get a string. Right, here's the get a string. And get string, we're looking for auth token, and the default value is nothing. And we're basically using that auth token and we're passing it in. This is us getting it. But in the login, if you remember correctly, the login activity, right, so this is this part, we set it, right? So when we're logging in, if the response is good, we get the token, and then once we get the token, we edit it. So there's the editor, and then we put string, and we apply this, right? So this is the auth token, we're putting something. And so what we can do is grab this piece, right? Grab this piece. And what we can say is, if I go back to main activity, let's go back to main activity here. And when we are logging out, right, all we need to do, this is for us to do, is to basically clean up our shared preferences. So if I say something like, okay, so hey editor, I want to get shared preferences, I want to edit, and then the editor put string in the auth token instead of it, what if I put in, and I can put in whatever I want, right, because it says, you know, what is this that I want to put in? This is a string, right, so I can put in nothing. So I clean it up. No auth token, well, then it's going to fail. And then, so then I editor apply, so I apply that, so I clean up. This is basically, what this is doing is removing the auth token, right? That's what this is. So this is basically, hey, I'm cleaning up the auth token. I'm getting rid of it, right? The token itself. And this is basically navigating back, navigates back to the login screen. So why is this okay? Because remember what it does even in our API. It doesn't really do anything, right? Logging out, there is no state, right? JWT is, you know, basically it's going to expire that token in a week or whatever it's going to be, right? But for us, what we need to do is we need to remove it. So if we try and log in with the same token, it's gone. Okay, so this is effectively the same as logging out. Okay, so let's do it. So if I refresh, let's check it out. And then we have our full CRUD, at least for Android. Later on tonight, hopefully. Worst case tomorrow, guys. I know this is late, but you can start with the Android piece. I will have, when I get back to when I get back to operation from an internet perspective, I will make one more movie, a very small one, and you can just figure out yourself how it's done. Really, we've already turned on JWT. Now we have to put in the pieces that are missing. You know, so that's the thing we have to do. So let's log in again. So let's admin, and then 1, 2, 3. Let's actually fail. So if I log in, it should say like, ma'am, you know, you didn't log in properly or whatever, right? So it's going to say something like login failed. Let me take a look at that for you. So if I did that and I go login, it should give me a little toast. It says login failed, null, and login failed. That's instead of a toast, that's snack bar. You can put the snack bar to come up wherever you want. So toast comes down here. So that's the difference between a toast and a snack bar for you guys to use. You can use either one or the other, or in this case both. But let's say I put the entire thing in there. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then I can log in properly. And when I log in, I get the list. I can modify the list like we've done in the past. I can cancel. Full CRUD capability. This is me adding things. I can actually move that button up there too if I really want to, or put this one there. Lots of opportunity here for you to mess around and to make this nice. But I want to log out. So if I click log out, it's basically taking me back to here, and there's no errors. And so what's happened is it's cleaned up the token, right? So there's no way for me to get from here to the main screen. I can't, like, you know, pop this out and then move to another screen. I can't do, like, you know, something like this and it's going to work, right? That's something, a different app, you know, kind of thing. I can't go back to this one, the one I just had, and go to my main activity. It's gone. So in effect, I'm logged out. Okay, and that's how this thing works. Let's put this up on GitHub. So git add dots, git commit -m, and we'll say added logout capability. Okay. Let's do one more test before we go. And the test that I want to do right now is, what if I log in again? Okay, in the same session. So log in again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I get a new token, right? That's what happens. It gets stored in shared preferences, an auth token. And again, I'm good, right? I can go here. I can see stuff. Let's say I want to change to New Hope 2, right? And I want to save it, update. So then New Hope 2 gets updated. I'm good to go, you see? So this worked. So it actually was able to store that token again and transmit it to our API, and everything's good. So this is it for Android. And again, please hold tight. It's only a small amount of time I need for the last piece, which is just adding in the auth token, the auth bearer token stuff to the iOS side. I just don't have access to it right here, right now. Okay, guys, thank you so much for being patient with me today, as I've had several interruptions, but we should have that last video up very, very shortly. Okay, and look for that. So that'll be part 5. All right, and I'll see you in the next video.